His Excellency Dr. Dedagos Jones, Director General of the OECS, and other senior officials of this organization, dear fellow diplomats and representatives of international organizations accredited to the OECS, dear colleagues at the Brazilian Embassy, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be received today at the headquarters of this prestigious organization to present my credentials, along with the letters of recall of my predecessor, Ambassador Sergio Curi. I am the fourth Brazilian ambassador to present credentials as a representative of Brazil to the OECS. I arrived in St. Lucia in February 2020 for a 6-month temporary mission. A few weeks after my arrival, the COVID pandemic also reached Santa Lucia, and social, economic, political, and cooperation activities on the island came to a halt. In June 2021, life began to return to normal, and in this context of renewed hope, my government confirmed as a permanent ambassador to the government of St. Lucia and the OECS. That means we are quite friendly by now. Despite the circumstantial difficulties and limitations in 2020 and 2021, the Embassy and the OECS Secretariat managed to carry out some cooperation activities, particularly in the field of health. That was the need of the moment. We were able to deliver medicines, test kits, and vaccines to some of the organization members. During this time, we should also remember that the former administration in Brazil had entered a negationist and obscurantist spiral, which led the Brazilian diplomacy, which is a state institution, to curb part of its activities in order to preserve the core principles that guide the Brazilian foreign policy. At this moment of political ebb, 5 embassies were closed in the Caribbean region alone: Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, and St. Kitts and Nevis. That is almost the full members that make up the OECS, which impacted the possibilities of cooperation between Brazil and this organization. Little by little, but not without resistance and difficulties, you are all aware of things that happened in Brazil a few weeks ago, the new administration is asserting itself in Brazil, and our diplomacy is working to reinstate Brazil to its rightful place on the international stage. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has already announced his intention to reopen some of the embassies in Africa and the Caribbean that have been closed. It is to be expected thereafter the resumption and even the intensification of the relationship and cooperation between Brazil and developing countries and its institutions, particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean, as was evidenced at the recent CELAC meeting held in Buenos Aires in January. I'm aware of the successful cooperation initiatives carried out between Brazil and the OECS in the past, such as the agreement to supply antiretrovirals to HIV-positive patients in OECS member states, between 2006 and 2013, and the Memorandum of Understanding between the OECS Secretariat and the Brazilian Diplomatic Academy, known as the Rio Branco Institute. Agreements like these could easily be reactivated if this organization is interested, given that Brazil is a major producer and distributor of last-generation antiretrovirals, and the Rio Branco Institute continues to receive foreign students in its training courses. Brazil introduced in September 2021 a proposal for a general technical cooperation agreement to the OECS Secretariat, a response for which is still pending. This agreement is a necessary institutional framework for permanent cooperation programs between Brazil and OECS member countries. I would like to ask the Secretariat to designate a focal point to discuss the text of this agreement with the Embassy so it may be signed as soon as possible. Even in the absence of a comprehensive instrument of cooperation, ad hoc cooperation activities have been underway, as another batch of vaccines is being prepared in Brazil for donation to OECS members. Me and Abraham, who are taking care directly of this. This embassy and the OECS Secretariat have had a frank and open dialogue since I arrived here. And we both have demonstrated that the desire and need to cooperate may overcome certain requirements or bureaucratic obstacles. This is, after all, the ultimate purpose of diplomatic activity, to use all possible means to make the benefits of the relationship between governments and institutions reach common citizens, especially those most in need. Thank you very much, my dear Dr. Jules.
Excellency, I'm delighted to welcome you to the premises of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and to receive from you these letters of accrediting you as Ambassador and Resident Representative of the Federative Republic of Brazil to the OECS. The occasion of your presentation of letters offers a great opportunity to reflect on what we've achieved thus far, and you referred to that in your remarks, and to look forward to even what more we can accomplish in the future. It is my hope that under your watch, the relationship between the OECS and Brazil will continue to flourish for the benefit of our peoples. And I want to assure you of my personal commitment to intensify these relations that were formalized many years ago. Relations between Brazil and the wider Caribbean community have been exceptionally close and friendly, with a very strong tradition of mutual support. In the great state of Bahia, Brazil hosted the first Latin America and Caribbean Summit, you will recall. It was the first encounter of our continental south that laid a foundation for CELAC. At the level of CARICOM, relations were significantly enhanced following the convening of the first CARICOM Brazil Summit held in Brasilia in 2010, an initiative which resulted in mutually beneficial commitments in several areas of cooperation in the political, economic, and social spheres. As regards our region, the OECS-Brazil friendship spans decades, ever since diplomatic relations were established with the member states of the organization at the bilateral level in President Lula's first tenure, and later at the regional level when Brazil established formal diplomatic relations with the OECS in 2009. The establishment of Brazilian embassies, as you pointed out, in every independent Caribbean country sent a very clear signal of Brazil's commitment to respectful and equal relations with its hemispheric neighbors, regardless of size. In respect of the OECS, Brazil has been a willing, reliable, and generous partner and has contributed towards the overall development of our region. A technical cooperation agreement was signed between Brazil and the OECS in 2006. Under that agreement, Brazil committed to donating antiretroviral medicines for 500 persons living with HIV/AIDS in the OECS region. It must be mentioned that when the number of persons requiring access to these drugs were increased to 700, the government of Brazil, without hesitation, agreed to provide the additional drugs required. This increased cost was way beyond Brazil's commitment under the cooperation agreement. That program was extended up to 2013 and guaranteed the uninterrupted supply of antiretroviral drugs, which decreased the mortality and morbidity rate of hundreds of persons living with HIV/AIDS in the OECS region. In 2010, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the OECS and the Rio Branco Institute of the Ministry of External Affairs on mutual cooperation and training of diplomats. Through this MOU, Brazil provided support to the region in diplomatic training, a critical aspect of OECS efforts to become a more sophisticated and effective actor in the international sphere. This partnership has resulted in the provision of one-year scholarships to officials of member states as well as the Commission. Over the past 2 years, the government of Brazil provided financial assistance to support member states in their efforts to confront the coronavirus pandemic. These funds assisted in the purchase of testing supplies, including swabs and test kits. More recently, Brazil has offered OECS member states 2,610,000 vaccines. Of these, 1,410,000 are routine vaccines, and the balance, 1,200,000, are COVID-19 vaccines. Excellency, you can be assured that your country's contribution will improve healthcare significantly and protect persons across the OECS region from vaccine-preventable diseases. The OECS places great value on its friendship with Brazil and is very appreciative of the country's expressions of solidarity and goodwill over the years. Your credentials are being presented at a time of global instability. Across the globe, 2023 poses a challenge to nations which must grapple with unpredictability, the impact of high inflation on our small economies brought by the aftermath of the pandemic, and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. While it was anticipated that a semblance of stability would be restored in 2022 following COVID lockdowns, the ongoing war in Ukraine has produced increased volatility that has affected not only economies and energy markets, but global security as well. But the presentation of your credentials also comes at a time of greatest optimism for us as small island developing states in the hemisphere. The return of Brazil to the family of CELAC at the historical moment of the assumption of the pro tempore president by Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and at the very moment when Brazil reassumes a proactive commitment to addressing climate change, engenders great optimism. Excellency, despite the obvious challenges that face us, I am confident that the future holds great promise, especially when that future is confronted through joint action and synergism. The time is opportune for us to jointly explore new fields of cooperative endeavor that could assist our regions in confronting today's unprecedented combination of global challenges. This, I believe, can serve as the groundwork to determine new and relevant areas for development cooperation initiatives, as well as ways to improve the operational framework of our existing agreements over the long term. Today, Excellency, we celebrate our durable friendship with Brazil, as well as your accreditation as your country's representative to the OECS, and as a proven personal friend of the OECS. I wish to assure you that Brazil can equally count on the OECS as both partner and a friend, and I look forward to working with you to strengthen that friendship and to realize lasting benefit to our respective peoples. or new iteration of your assignment, I extend very best wishes for success. I assure you of my full support and that of the staff of the OECS Commission during your tenure. Our collective duty at this defining moment of hemispheric solidarity is to once again, and I use a quote, make hope possible rather than despair convincing. To quote President Lula at the CELAC summit earlier this year, and I quote, there is a clear contribution to be made by the region to the construction of a peaceful world order based on dialogue, the strengthening of multilateralism, and the collective construction of multipolarity. Together we can, and together we must. Welcome to the OECS.